Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk Football with Dan and Jesse. Thank you very much for joining us. Today's show, we're going to be discussing the pre-season so far for the big six clubs. Football's starting to get kicked off again now. We've had a couple of United games, a couple of Liverpool games. Chelsea have already kicked off. Arsenal's had a fair few. They've had the most so far, a couple of games before everybody else. And City's still yet to get going. They start this week. They've got their first game. They're out in Texas at the moment, over in America. So we're well and truly into it, and the Premier League will be with us before we know it. So, Jesse, how are you, mate? You all right? Yeah, you're on. I can't hear you, buddy.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. I'm really good. Thank you very much. Brilliant. So yeah, we'll just get straight into it. But yeah, we don't want to just put your comments and your thoughts and feelings about whatever you've seen so far from your team, other teams, what you made of players, systems, who's doing well, who's not, anyone going to struggle, anything you've noticed. Stick it in the comments or put it in the live chat and we'll discuss it. So with that, looking at, go from the top, shall we? Arsenal. We watched them the other night, didn't we? Oh, well, the night time for me, daytime for you, up against Everton. First proper pre-season, part of the tour in America. They look really, really good. They do look very, very good. That first 11, they played 2 45s, first team and the second team, which is what a lot of teams have done. And we had a glimpse of what we think is going to be the 11 for Arsenal going forward, other than Ramsdale, who isn't with the Arsenal team as it stands right now. They played the goalkeeper, what was his, Turner?
Turner, yeah.
Yeah, Turner. They look really good. Very, very good. Everton looked toothless. Defensively, they were struggling against Arsenal. Jesus was causing all sorts of messes and stuff like that. So we'll have to see how we get on. Just bear with us a second.
Yeah, it's all good. Like Dan was saying there, they started off against Nuremberg. I didn't actually get to watch much of that match, but from what I saw, the effect that Gabriel Jesus had when he came on definitely kind of allowed them to not push up forward, but had a little bit more confidence. They haven't really gone to see a whole lot of their new players. I know they've only signed 3 so far, but besides Turner, who, let's admit, goalkeepers are kind of the least exciting signings most of the time, especially when they're backups. But then also Gabby Jesus. Those are the 2 players that we've really gone to see. We haven't seen Vieira yet, I don't think. And
Yeah, no, he looked really good, Jesus. I think he offered something completely different. This is something we predicted when we did our stats show a few weeks ago. If you want to go back and have a look at that, we discussed, Gabriel Jesus and how much of an upgrade he is in comparison to the players that they already had. And he's shown that. He's already proven straight away what we predicted is that he is a much more attack-minded, more lethal, better finisher, better at all of the situations that they need. So it's no surprise Jesus has hit the ground running at a club like Arsenal. I think they've done really, really well with bringing Jesus in. The price is right, and it looks like a match made in heaven. You've got a player who's desperate to play first team football every single week, and a team that was crying out for a proper striker. So they've got the best of both worlds. I think everyone's happy there.
Yeah, and I had my doubts kind of seeing how he would actually perform as a striker, but I think the early signs are good. I think he scored either a brace or a hat trick in the first game.
Yeah.
That said, I think it's Bundesliga 2 side Nuremberg.
Yeah.
But still doing a job, doing what we'd expect, and not. You'd rather have your new strikers like scoring right off the bat rather than having them not score 5 games in. You'd rather have them open their sheet or whatever, their account earlier.
It is when you're massively when you are going to rely so heavily on them. When they are the only one who's going to be the goal scorer, then yeah, I completely agree with you there. That when the workload isn't going to be as shared around as much at Arsenal as it will be, say, at other clubs. Jesus has been brought in to be the new goal-scoring threat at Arsenal, and that's what he's showing so far. So it's just going to be interesting to see how he can keep that consistency, which is really important. He's a player who has shown some brilliant goals and some brilliant talent, but at times he's also been a little bit inconsistent when it comes to his finishing. He's known as I say, when we did our stats show, we showed his G, his XG. He does underperform when it comes to scoring goals. He has more chances he should score than he actually does. So he's going to have to bring those levels up so that he can bring those goals to Arsenal, because they're going to be relying on him really heavily. But going through them, I mean, they looked like a good team. They penned. We're going to more concentrate on the Everton game because I think, like you say, the Bundesliga 2 team, Nuremberg, it is what it is. It's a warm up, it's a fitness test. But Everton, they played a full 11. They played their first team. Arsenal played their first team in the first 45 minutes, and they really, really were dominant against Everton. They snuffed out any attacks. The midfield looked strong. Defensively, they looked good. I think Everton had one half chance that really wasn't very much. Otherwise, it was 45 minutes of complete dominance from Arsenal. I actually commented on our Discord when we were watching and said, "Oh, it's 65-35 was the stats." But I said, "Well, about 95% of that 65 is in Everton's half. They were, so strong were they when they had the ball. They had it in good places, and they were making things happen with it. So it's onwards and upwards. Big test though coming up. Do you not think they've got a big test when they come up against Chelsea? And they have a final game in around about a week's time where they play Chelsea, and that's going to be a really interesting sort of barometer as to where Arsenal are. Everton probably going to be in a relegation sort of scrap. I don't think they'll get relegated, but I think they're going to be well and truly down at that bottom echelon of the table. But when they come up against the Chelsea, it's going to be very interesting to see how they cope with that one. And I, for one, I'm really interested in that game.
Yeah, it's kind of the interesting thing is they look sharp. Looks like Arsenal's kind of leaving off where they left off. They've looked good in the previous games, and I think it has helped that they've had a couple other games, to be fair. But it does seem like Arteta has a system that he's got the players playing in, and they're all buying into the philosophy. So there's not a whole lot there. They look structured, and that's more than you can ask for going into a new season. Like I said, we'll see how the new signings adapt, but they look good. They look organized. Let's say that. And that's going to be part of the thing. Like when you're talking about Chelsea, that's actually on July 23rd. So it'll be this Saturday. It'll be interesting to see them come up against another team who is also just as organized. So.
Yeah, 100%. And that's probably one of the most interesting games I'm looking forward to because it's going to be two teams who are well and truly into their pre-season fitness. They're going to be playing at full sort of tilt almost to a point where it's going to be played at full match speed. Probably not going to go in for 50-50s and stuff like that, but they're going to be going and playing hard, looking to kind of, test their mettle as to where they are. One thing I would say about Arsenal, and this is at the end of the day, it's a long project, and this is all forms part of, having such a young team and also selling off a number of your key senior players. They look like they have an 11, but I don't think there's very much when it comes to, kind of rotation. The players, when it comes to the second half of Arsenal, this is where the downside kind of comes in, is that Everton were able to then basically nullify Arsenal. Arsenal had the ball, but ultimately couldn't do anything with it. Once they took away that first 11, the 11 that we think is going to play next season, Arsenal looked a little bit impotent. And that's just going to show potentially, if they do get some injuries, that it's going to affect the quality standards between the two that come in. As a Liverpool fan, I know all about this. I'm not saying that Arsenal are quite at the, as you say there, that was basically their full 11. From when he first started off, and this is where the goals came from in the first half, and that's what we're going to see next season. Basically, Zinchenko is more than likely, now that deal has been agreed, is more than likely going to be first choice over Tavares. In my opinion, I think it would be better. I think he'd be mad to leave City to go and be on the bench at Arsenal. He might as well just stay at City and be on the bench there. So yeah, they're going to have a good team. They look strong. They looked very dominant. That's it. It was interesting, but like I say, with anything, this is Arsenal of last season. Arsenal did this against a number of teams lower down the league where they were like, oh yeah, they're winning this game, they're looking really good. But when they came up against a senior team, a proper team, they seem to wilt under the pressure. And that would be my question. When they play Chelsea, how are they going to deal with the occasion? That's what I'm interested. Are they going to be as brave? Are they going to be as attacking, front-footed, front-minded? Or will they kind of potentially kind of go, oh, hang on, that's a team that can beat us. Let's just, step back a bit.
Yeah, question for you, but I'll just go over it real quick. I thought Saliba looked really good, and I think he looked good with Gabriel. I think they could make a really good partnership, and I'm not really, really convinced by White. What do you think? Do you think that It's hard to tell right now, but if you had the option, if you were Arteta, do you think you'd go into the season with Saliba over White, or would you just kind of give it time, like room to breathe?
I think it's interesting because Saliba had a really good season last year in Liga, and for him to come back to Arsenal, he's going to want to be involved in that first team. He doesn't want to be sitting on that bench. He wants to be playing football. There's a World Cup coming up, which he'll probably want to be involved in. As much as it may be difficult, you want to at least be on the plane, to ask that question. Ben White, again, I've never really been overly convinced by the guy, and he's not really kind of shown those levels. But it's going to be interesting. We're going to have 5 subs next season again, and this could potentially be what happens at Arsenal, that they're going to, rotate, these players to keep everyone happy and give people game time and whatnot. But there we go. Can we just while we're on it, I'm just looking at that second, like the players that are available for the second half. Bellerin, I mean, yeah, we all know that. Eddie Nketiah, Maitland-Niles, Holding, Nicolas Pepe, the man who's forgotten about, Pablo Marie, Sang Lakonga, Reece Nelson, El Neni, and Walters down at the Walkers at the bottom. There's nothing there really that concerns me. There's not really anybody there who worries me.
This is my concern. These are all good squad options, but they're 100% squad options. These are not players who can necessarily come in and play 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row if there's a long-term injury to, let's say, Gabby Jesus. I'm not gonna bash Nketiah. He actually was playing pretty well the other night. But I'm not sure he's the person you want to come in to play 10 games. Maitland-Niles either doesn't want to be there or isn't going to be used. As Arteta's made it pretty clear, Rob Holding is a good option, but should he be playing 5 games in a row? No. Pepe, who knows what's going on there? It's either political or Arteta just doesn't like the guy. Mari, not good enough. Lukonga, young. Nelson, not good enough, needs to go for his own career. El Neni, but it's just none of these fill me with confidence. There's no real strength and depth. But their first 11, I mean, going through this, even without White, and then you bring Tierney or Zinchenko in, and then you have Tomiyasu, and Suarez isn't. I mean, Cedric, like, Suarez isn't the worst player in the world. He gets a lot of stick. He does serve a function. This 11 with the ones that I'm mentioning plus Ramsdale, it's a good team. It's a good 11. So.
It is, isn't it? And they're gonna really rely on these boys to stay fit. I think for Arsenal to have a top 4 place on the cards, they're gonna need these boys to stay fit. If they lose someone like, for example, Jesus, let's say they lose him to a knock and he misses 4 or 5 games, they're gonna miss him. They're going to massively miss this guy. They're going to have to protect him. Saka, equally, he's another player who's going to be, really important for them, to stay fit for next season. So that's Arsenal. Really impressed the first so far. Really looking forward to watching them again. So up next, we'll just move on to Chelsea while we've got it up. Yeah. So Chelsea, first proper game back together post Lukaku. 2-1 against Club America. Didn't have it all their own way. I didn't watch this game. I think Jesse did. I only watched the highlights, and it was a winning game at least. But it was not. I mean, I can actually see something straight away. 19 shots, of which very few of them were on target. It's kind of proven a point which we discussed in one of our previous stat shows. Is there's no killers. There's no killers in that team.
Yeah, no, there's not. And watching the game, Chelsea were good value for money. The Reece James own goal was an absolute myth.
It happens.
He didn't look. The keeper was out of position. I think it was Bettinelli at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was satirical, right? No, they were good value for money. They're also coming up against a Club America side who's pretty much mid-season and very, very fit and very, very aggressive. These teams don't. The Central American teams do not play friendlies like they're friendlies. So I think it was a really good run out for Chelsea. And like I said, I think that they were good value for money in the way that they moved the ball. They looked sharp for this being their first preseason game. They looked organized, but they didn't necessarily look fit, which you would expect.
Yeah, you'd expect that, wouldn't you? And like I say, as you can see there, what Chelsea clearly did well was preventing shots on target. There was no shots on target there from Club America. which was good, which is what you'd expect from a Thomas Tuchel team. Very well defensively drilled. They're creating chances, but this is where my worry was again. This is, something that I've brought up a couple of times when we've discussed it, is that bringing Sterling in is not going to score more goals. I don't see it happening. I don't think they're going to score more with Sterling coming in replacement of, say, for example, Havertz or whoever. The only player he probably will outscore will be Timo Werner. In all honesty, he'll be the person that they would outscore. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. First game back, bit of, rustiness in there. They had a good run out there. Got a couple more big games. Big test against Arsenal, equally as much for Chelsea. This isn't like, Arsenal are going to come to Chelsea and be like, oh, it's going to be more of a case of Chelsea are going to need to test where they are, where they are as a team against a resurgent Arsenal, and Arsenal which were much better than they were last season. So I'm really, really interested to see how that game pans out. What did you make of the game when you were watching it, Jesse? It's mute, mate. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I keep doing that. They don't look fit yet. They're puffing quite a bit. But no, they look sharp. One of the things I took away, Chalobah looked really good. Gallagher looked really good. Kennedy, I think he's kind of playing for his spot, but he looks like he might know he's on the way out. The one thing that really stuck out to me was Ziyech and Hudson-Odoi look like people who know. They look like players who know that they're on their way out. They didn't look that interested. But, all in all, they look like a good team. They just look like a team that is rusty and needs a couple more runouts to get back to where they are. But, yeah, that's the main takeaway. The youngsters look really good. Barkley, Hudson-Odoi, and Ziyech don't look like they want to be there, and they probably know they're not going to be there. So
this is it. This is where Tuchel's going to have to obviously weed out those players that he doesn't want in his system. Who aren't going to serve a purpose for his team at the end of the day, and then trying to bring in those new players, waiting on Koulibaly to come in there, probably replace Koulibaly coming in. Ultimately that influence that they're more than likely going to play 4 at the back rather than the 5 or the 3 at the back situation. Koulibaly doesn't play in a 3. I've never known him ever play in a back 3. So Koulibaly coming in probably indicates that they're going to go to play 4 at the back rather than the standard 3. So I will be interested to see how that pans out, when Koulibaly joins in with the team, and see how quickly that's implemented, whether it's implemented over time, whether it's implemented, quick, almost straight away. We'll probably more than likely see that as the league kind of gets up and running from there. So first game, first kind of thoughts from Chelsea is it's more of the same, isn't it? It's more of where they were last season. Lukaku isn't really a big loss because, in fairness, he didn't really bring much to the table. Rudiger, unfortunately, that will take time to notice whether, if they're losing a player of his quality. Say, for example, Thiago Silva, needs to take some extended amount of time out for whatever reason. And, if Koulibaly's going to have a lot on his shoulders to kind of be the most senior man at that back from next season. So they're going to be interested to see how that kind of, pans out as time goes on.
Yeah, Will. And also, I agree with you on the back 4 thing, because this is what I've been saying. This is what people have been saying. And it does seem like they might go for a back 4, especially with Koulibaly coming in. I have a feeling that you kind of start as you mean to go on. And I think that this might be an indication, especially if they play the same way against whomever they're playing next. Charlotte. If they play that way against Arsenal, I think that they're going to be playing a back 3. Because I do think there's, especially with the top managers, they do start as they mean to go on and keep it, consistent, especially in preseason. So it'll be interesting to see, but that was just kind of my one of my impressions that I got from the game for sure. So
no, definitely. So so that's what we can bring for you from Chelsea, because I haven't got too much really to add to them, to be honest with you. We'll just dust over City. They've landed first proper day of preseason training over in Texas. So not too much to kind of bring in for those. So it's not much to do. So Liverpool, we lost 4-0 to United. We'll go over that banter on us. Didn't surprise me in the slightest. First game back for Liverpool is always 30 minutes of football for the whole team. Everyone just gets a chance to run out, fitness, get together and just do a runabout. And it was an interesting. Liverpool played 32 different players in 90 minutes of football. As you can see, it was
it's ridiculous. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, like literally. I mean, it even goes to a second, almost to a second page there. Everyone got a run out. I probably more in that game. Probably would just discuss more about what I was happy with and what I was less happy with. So I'll go on to what I was happy with. I was very happy to see Darwin Núñez involved. I was very happy to see Fabio Carvalho involved within our pre-season. They looked really, really good. A lot of heat coming towards Darwin Núñez, which is, I mean, it comes with the territory. When you buy a new toy at your football club, your new striker, then everyone's out there looking for some reason as to kind of bring water onto that situation. And he's played 60 minutes of football, doesn't speak a word of English, is having to learn a whole new system. And for me, I was happy with what he was doing. 1 second, mate.
Yeah, so we've had these conversations. Dan and I have had these conversations plenty about Núñez. Obviously, it comes with the territory when you go ahead and buy especially a young player who is unproven, only has a season really playing at the top level, and you pay that much for him. The vultures will ultimately be circling, even if it's only 65 minutes into get minutes played for, but yeah, you can go on from there.
This is it. Yeah. 65, he's had 60 minutes of football under his belt. The first game against United, where he came on for the last 30 minutes, as involved in that. What I was kind of focusing on, a lot of people kind of went out there and put the video of him putting one over the bar. And, I can sit here and say, well, to be honest with you, I think Eric Bailly's got it covered. I think he's done a really good job. Eric Bailly's actually been really good for United this pre-season. He's defended really well. He looks like a man who's on a mission, either to stay in the team or to put himself on the market to go and move to another club. But he was really playing strong. And did I want Darwin Núñez to go out there and try and smash the ball and end up booting by his foot and end up, breaking his metatarsal? No, not when we're 4-0 down. Don't take risks. That's not what I need you to do. I just need you to be in the right places. And that's what was important. He was in the places where you would want him to be. He was there where he was. He was making the right runs. There were several times where the final ball to him just wasn't good enough. And if it was, I think he'd have had even better quality chances against United. Fabio Carvalho, however, on the other hand, he brought something completely different to Liverpool, which was kind of this, silky kind of, ball playing midfielder who's happy to take the ball whichever direction he's facing, can turn a man, play a pass. He's just a silky player. He reminds me very much in the kind of the mold of Coutinho as a player. And it will be interesting to see how that's influenced into our team. He is a 10, most certainly. He plays the central attacking midfielder. He can play on that left-hand side of midfield, where he was playing predominantly against United, and he looked really good where he was. He played some good balls against United. He hit the post, played a blinder when he played a little cheeky dummy off to our left back, Luke Chambers. Luke Chambers probably should have finished. He was, for a lad who's 19 years of age, he has that arrogance that kind of beguiles, when someone's real quality. They're not frightened to do something that, like, oh God, I'm going to get really barked at from the from the bench or something like that, saying I've done something wrong. He's happy to kind of take those risks. And if you get those risk takers, ultimately, they're going to bring something different to the team. What did you make of Liverpool?
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially on Carvalho, Carvalho. He had that one opportunity where he made something out of absolutely nothing. Where like he basically took the ball down on his chest, spun, and without looking, kind of just knew exactly where the goal was, hit it, and that's when it came off the post. The one where he hit the woodwork came off. Then obviously Diaz fluffed his lines, but Diaz had a good game as well. It was Diaz, Carvalho, and well, Elliott looked sharp for sure, but then Salah. Those are like the four that looked the most sharp, most on it. I really like to look up some of your youngsters. Nat Phillips, gotta go. Gomez, great backup. Chambers, I don't think he'll make it at Liverpool, but I mean, this was probably one of his first chances, right?
Yeah.
Mabaya, that kid has something about him. I don't know if he'll make it at Liverpool, but he has something about him for sure. Morton didn't notice him at all, really. But you guys have some good youngsters. Just going through it real quick. The names that stick out to me, that impressed me, that is, was the other one was Hill. Frauendorf is sticking in my head, but it might just be because it's lady town. Woman village or whatever is what that would mean in German. But no, I think Hill did himself proud. Mabaya did, despite being at fault, or not even at fault, but just making one of the few mistakes that led to our first goal. And yeah, overall, I think this was a good opportunity for Klopp to kind of see who he wants to see again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think that's what it was really with Liverpool. It was just allowing Klopp to just say, go out there, 30 minutes, just show me what you can do kind of thing. And the bits I didn't like, and as I said, the bits I didn't like was the errors. That's what caused all of our problems from our young lads. And the errors were made by Nat Phillips. Williams made one almost immediately when he came on the pitch. Mabaya, unfortunately, didn't get helped out by Nat Phillips at all, but he was also involved in making an error for the first goal. And then the fourth goal, I wasn't really bothered. When you're already 3-0 down, it doesn't really make any odds. Do I want Konate and Van Dijk hunting impacts, trying to, get a tackle in? I'm not really bothered. If you get caught out in a pre-season game against United when you're 3-0 down, just leave it. It ain't worth getting an injury over. It ain't worth pulling your hamstring, chasing dead ends. That's something which a lot of people are forgetting. Is it's not what mattered in that game is nowhere near as important as what will come. We've already seen some injuries to certain players. De Gea came out of this game with a bit of a knock. Varane came out of this game with a knock. These are not that they did anything wrong. It's just what happens in these matches that you are taking a risk. And what I was happy with out the United game is that we didn't come out with any sort of injuries. Alisson said he had a little bit of an abdominal thing, but I think that's just, it is what it is. It's not anything. But otherwise, everyone was okay. Moving on to the second game against Crystal Palace. Now, the game against Crystal Palace, this was like watching Liverpool in the Premier League. It was really, really dominant. We were very strong. Just, we weren't like at 100% or even 90%, but this was like 70% Liverpool. This was kind of that Liverpool team who just passed the ball, did what they want, controlled the pace of the tempo. Really, really impressed with Harvey Elliott in this game. He was very, very good. He's like a brand new signing. Carvalho was very interesting in this game. Nunez came in again, got a couple of shots on target. He was in the right places again at the right times, and this is what I want. And this is the thing that maybe fans who are writing him off, especially in my fan base in Liverpool, is that if someone's in the right place, you're already halfway there. That's what needs to happen. What worries me is when players are not where you want them to be, when you start asking yourself, why is that player not there when that ball's gone in? Where are they? What I want is if Nunez is in the right places at the right times, eventually it'll all come together and the right balls will come. And then, he had two good shots, good saves. Salah looked electric, came on the 45th minute, scored within 2 minutes, looked really, really, really good. Strong, did 45 minutes of football. Klopp did 30 minutes again for players. This was another kind of, just sort of pre-season warm-up kind of game. Some players got 45, some got 30, some got 15. It was all just kind of managing everyone's legs and expectations and stuff like that. But yeah, we were very, very strong. And this was kind of like Liverpool kind of where you want them to be. And it took them 3 days to go back to kind of being the Liverpool that we saw last season. But probably trying out a few different kind of bits and pieces in the meantime as well.
Yeah, you guys looked really sharp in this game. And the fact that it was against Crystal Palace, which even if Crystal Palace didn't really look up to speed, that could have been just the tempo that Liverpool was playing at, and in the first half especially, where they basically just there was no getting out. But it's also Crystal Palace on their day can always be a tough team. I think because it's preseason, the intensity isn't there, which I think is, to be fair, Palace's biggest advantage in any game, especially against the bigger sides. But no, you guys look sharp, and I don't think that if they had been up to speed, if you guys had been up to speed equally, it just wouldn't have mattered much. The passing was crisp. Everything looked dynamic. You guys did slow down a little bit. Fitness levels aren't there as to be expected. But again, I mean, it's kind of the same as Chelsea's. Like, you guys look like like Klopp will always have you guys in as a unit, but you guys looked like you guys were actually doing Liverpool things in this game. Whereas against United, the youngsters looked like they were trying to press, and they were pressing in certain positions very well, but it wasn't as cohesive as I'd expect.
So. No. In the United, as I say, in that United game, the interesting thing is that they did cause those problems that you would have wanted the youngsters still finding ways to, get through United, and that was the positives. That was what you can take from that game, is that, that the things were happening. It was just about showing that you could do the right things at the right times. And, the two games are both sponsorship kind of contractual games. I mean, Klopp has a bit of a disdain for them, to be honest with you. He's not really, a big fan of them in any way, shape or form. It's about appeasing kind of, sponsorships. And it is a thank you for the fans, obviously, in that area of the world. And I do appreciate that. But when you play 60 odd different players in two matches, it does show a lack of respect for the actual game. And more of the fact is you just use it as an over-exaggerated training exercise, fitness level situation where you go out there and do 30 minutes or go out there and do 40 minutes, just do what you can do. And then proper pre-season starts this week on Thursday against RB Leipzig over in Germany. Club will have been together back for a couple of weeks, play Thursday and then Wednesday the next week. City is, oddly enough, it's like a pre-season game because it's the day before another pre-season game. One I'll be attending the Strasbourg game. So a little bit gutted because we're probably not going to see many of the big names against them. But we will see those who've not had quite as many minutes as they would have wanted. So yeah, I'm happy. As I say, I've got no concerns. I think it's just going to be, just as long as everyone stays fit. A little bit gutted that Oxlade-Chamberlain got injured, but it is what it is. This is what happens. These situations kind of come around, and that's where they are. So yeah, so we've kind of covered United, Liverpool, haven't we? So we'll go on to your second game. Melbourne victory. What did you make of that, Jesse?
Yeah, let me just touch on it. So against Liverpool, there were clear signs that they were trying to do something. There was a clear change in system, fullbacks pushing up, overloading the midfield, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
Definite things that have been being drilled into this team from Ten Hag and his coaching staff during preseason, which were really promising. It looked sloppy against Liverpool, especially in the second half, but ultimately it was good to just see a difference in the style of play, seeing a different, not really formation, but a different structure to the way the formation, the 4-2-3-1 lined up. So that was all just kind of like Dan was saying earlier. I mean, it was just getting mitts into legs. It was nice to see us play our first team because ultimately Ten Hag is going to live or die based on how that first 11 works. So I think you just wanted to see that early.
It was, and I was impressed myself. You were doing a lot of very good things, right? The way the pressing was better, you pressed at the right times. There wasn't like, an over thing. Don't get me wrong, there was a few situations where it was like, Fred got caught out a couple of times. This is what Fred does. Rashford was working hard, but it didn't quite come off for him against Liverpool. He did cut a bit of a frustrated figure towards the end of the first half when it wasn't quite working out for him. Not so much that, he wasn't getting the ball, where I've just said, well, Nunez is doing the same thing. It was more of a case of he got tackled, and I think he was kind of frustrated that, he kind of was. He's a guy who I genuinely believe that, he wants things to happen, and he wears that, heart on his sleeve. When it doesn't happen, you can see it. You can't hide it. So I just hope that he can kind of, keep that under wraps, because I want to see a good season out of Marcus Rashford, because he deserves one, as a player.
He is a confidence player, and he had a poor time last season. You can't just say it's all up to confidence, but he really did have a bad time last season, and he looked like he was working hard. He looked like he was working for his position, to keep his position and hopefully go on and get back to the levels that he should be at. He has a lot of doubters this season. I'm one of them, but if he can prove us wrong, then Godspeed. In the second game, he looked much better. He looked much sharper, and the team as a whole looked much more fluid. It looked a lot more cohesive. So a lot of the thing about the Melbourne victory game, it was against a much worse side. We got caught out on the break early doors, and that was first a mistake by Lindelof, not blocking out the pass down the line. Luke Shaw was pushed up too high, which is going to be his issue because he has to be up there. But his problem is that once he's up there, he doesn't get back in time. So that's a major concern. Lindelof had to come over, didn't cut out a pass that he should have cut out, and then Maguire, whoever this guy, how do you think you pronounce that? Chris, we'll call him the guy who scored in Chris Economidis or whatever. I mean, he just pulled off the back of Maguire like he wasn't even there and outpaced him. Maguire had a head start on it. Like everything was wrong. Maguire doesn't fit into a high line or a system with a high line. That's clear as day. So I'm just going to leave it. We already know that. I don't need to bash him too much. After that, I mean, it was just full control over the entire game. I mean, there was nothing that the Melbourne side did.
Yeah, the quality difference was there. I mean, this is the only unfortunate side of it is when you do play a team, it's like if Liverpool played Strasbourg, like you can't glean too much from it other than kind of you did the right things in the right spaces kind of thing. It's like you should be beating a team like Melbourne Victory with the players that it has to. It's kind of, with your first, you should be able to beat them without any, and the reason you'll beat them is because you're doing the right things, because you're doing what you're being asked to do. A little bit fortunate, I think, with your first goal. Scott McTominay had a big deflection, but it's the way it goes. If you don't ask the question, you're not going to score. So, I've got big respect for that, and it makes no difference. And
same with the fourth. But yeah, no, I think that this whole preseason is about seeing a system at work and how it actually manages to not get us over the line, but see how it improves specific areas of the pitch. And at this point in time, I can tell you that there will be a lot of games next season where we concede silly goals because we're playing such a high line, and Ten Hag will expect that. I also see if we improve in certain positions, let's just say Frankie does come in, Martinez comes in, who's way more press resistant than any of our defenders right now. If we can make that defense and midfield more press resistant, and then we get more mobile wing backs or fullbacks in, let's just say Malacia and Delo, or if we bring in Dumfries or whoever we're going to get, because it looks like they're going to go in for a right back, then we're in a much better position to, yes, we might get countered, but it will be very rarely because we will have more possession and it will be more, the game will be in our hands. Once we score, we'll kind of revert back to those Louis van Gaal days where we didn't score a lot and we didn't create a lot of chances underneath LVG. But once we did bag, there was no taking the ball off of us. It was just a painful process. And so I think against a lot of the lower teams, that will be the case. Against Liverpool and City, we're just going to have to make adjustments and fall back. And like we're not going to be able to play the same way we want to play, which is a given. But I saw signs that I was kind of not sure I'd see, which is I think with the right quality of player, we'll be able to play a much higher line against a lot more teams than I thought we would be able to. So good signs there. Honestly, I think the highlight from this game overall was being able to see Freddie McTominay drop out after the first half and seeing players like Iqbal and Savage.
Yes, they look really good.
That was a mass. I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, Savage, this kid, obviously Robbie Savage's child, he has all the talent in the world. Same with Iqbal. I think that United fans are going to kind of overhype them, but I really do think there's something to hype there, especially when you have Scott on the ball in midfield. They both have twice the talent, like in their pinky finger than Scott will ever have, at least on the ball. So I'm excited about seeing them. I think they can be utilized pretty heavily in the season coming up. So
Yeah, they're going to need to be, because I think, numbers wise, I mean, that's the 11. And again, I'll hold the same energy for United as I will for Arsenal. You're going to be heavily reliant on this team to stay fit. You don't want to have, extended periods of, players, maybe missing 4 or 5 games. Someone ends up getting like a 5 or 6 week miss, because they would soon add up. And the quality of this team is what you can see right now in the first 11. And that first 11 is probably the strongest 11. You're going to bring in Martinez. He's going to come in and replace Lindelof. He'll probably play on that side. You'd want Varane, in all honesty. So centre backs, you're going to have some choices and some options, but then it does change the way that the team can play, quality wise.
Yeah, I think strongest 11 without Cristiano right now is Tony, Sancho, Bruno, possibly Eriksen, but we'll see once he gets in. Rashford scored yesterday in the second half, took it really well. Looked a lot more clinical than he did in the previous game. Looked a lot more sharp. Fred, Iqbal Savage, or obviously Frankie if he comes in, and then Luke Shaw, like you said, Martinez, Varane, and then Delot. Delot's the most worrying position for me on this pitch, actually, because we don't have a right back who can play in a Ten Hag system besides Delot.
Yeah,
and Delot looks really good on that right side with Sancho, so I'm totally cool with that being our starting two on that side. They were electric in that first half, but that's the one. Like, we don't have anyone. I think it's too early for Laird. And I think that I have a feeling that Ten Hag will make that decision and send Laird back out on loan. So we just don't have anyone else. But in the second half, Laird played the position very well. So hopefully we'll keep him, but I think he'll send him out.
No, definitely, I agree. So yeah, so it's going to be interesting. As I say, I think United have got some good shoots are coming up there of being a better team. I think you're going to be strong. You're definitely going to be challenging for top four, in my opinion. Whether or not you're going to be able to kind of get ahead of Tottenham and get ahead of Chelsea is going to be a different equation. But the variables are there, and as long as United do their job and win the games that you'd expect them to win, and some luck goes in your way, which sometimes it happens. You get lucky with injuries and there's no problems there. Then there's no reason that fourth spot is not with beyond reach kind of thing. It's a promising start. So we'll finish up with going on to Spurs. Tottenham, they've played 2 games now. This first one, we'll quickly go over the K-League 11. This match was a soap opera. Just there, the 6-1, 6-3 game. This match was an absolute soap opera. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Penalty song comes on, second half, standing ovation. Everyone was big and made up with it. And then as soon as he comes on, one of the K-League players decides to try and catch the ball in midair and give a penalty away, and Song gets to take it. And it was just drama. There was theatre for fans. This wasn't a proper football match at all. There was no betting on the game. So I think that should tell you more than what you would know, that this was an exhibition. It was just for entertainment purposes only. So really, we'll have to move on to the second game, which was Sevilla. Tough match this. I watched this game. Tottenham did not have it all of their own way. And this was their first proper challenge against a proper team of equal measure, of equal quality. And they didn't look convincing. They didn't look convincing at all. The goal that they scored was scrappy. It was a scrappy goal. And these things happen, and these things are what you need. But people out there thinking Tottenham are going to come out there and storm leagues and stuff like that, they've still got a long way to go. This is still a Tottenham team who is still a long way from gelling. They weren't convincing, didn't have a lot of possession. At times got outplayed by Sevilla, which is no disgrace. Sevilla were a very good team. However, I think Tottenham would have liked to probably have a bit of a more convincing game, with the attacking options that they have with Son and Kane and Richarlison and Lucas Moura. You'd think goals would come, but they haven't come at all.
Yeah, did the system look anything like a Conte system, or was it just I'll go ahead and answer that. Just looking at these statistics, I'd never look at Tottenham as a team that looks like they're going to be imperious and they're going to be a massive threat. Their biggest utility is basically surprising teams. Even under Conte, like I never watched Conte teams and think, oh wow, they are absolutely controlling this game. Now they do in the same way Jose does, where they control the game through defense and through setting up like a mid block and all that. But just in your general opinion, because I didn't get to watch this one either. Fortunately, it worked out because you saw this one, I saw the Chelsea one. But did it look like they had any sense of control, or was it a Sevilla side just kind of playing around with them? Because I can see Sevilla, I can see Villarreal playing around with a Conte team. I really can.
It was, yeah. Sevilla were, as you say, they had more possession there by, nearly a good 20%, 16% more possession. They just had the ball. Sevilla were quite happy just to control the ball and play it the way that they wanted. And I think this will be interesting what Tottenham have to come up against, because, as you say, Tottenham will be the anti-football towards the Cities and the Liverpools next season. However, when it comes to playing teams which are quite happy to also have the ball and not do a lot with it, Tottenham are going to have to do some work, and they'll have to change situations up, and this is what they'll have to react to, because too many games like this will kill their chances. Too many games where they come up against a team who's happy to just take a draw. If another team's happy to take a draw and go, it's all right. You know what? We're Brighton, we'll take a draw. We're Brentford, we'll take a draw. 0-0 is good for us, and you come in and attack us. You come in. We watched Tottenham last season against Burnley. This was a team that was happy for Tottenham to have the ball, and it took a long, long time before a penalty occurred for Tottenham to actually get a goal. They struggled. They did struggle against the team, with that there. So it's going to be interesting. And this game was their first test at seeing, how this new attacking line worked, and it didn't quite pass the test.
So you think you will think that it could be Kulusevski coming back in? This because I didn't know this. Richarlison did start, right? So yeah. Do you think just if you had to guess, because it's impossible to tell, do you think that this is their starting front line next season?
I would say so. Yeah. I would say that would be their front line, and Kulusevski would be a second choice. You don't buy a player for 60 million and stick him on the bench. Especially if they're not a young kid. I know Liverpool have just signed Nunez, and that'll come back and bite me in the arse because Nunez will be on the bench. But the difference being is Richarlison's not a kid. He's been in the Premier League for 5 seasons. He is a first starting player. If you pay 60 million for a player who's in his mid-20s and plays for Brazil, he should be a first starting player. So I think Kulusevski will become rotational as opposed to first choice.
Yeah, I can see Romero, Dyer. That makes sense. Laurie. Davinson Sanchez, I'm not sure. Sessegnon, he started getting used more at the end of the season, right? But then I think that'll be Basuma, Højbjerg. Who would play on the right instead of Lucas? Who do you think?
Well, actually, Lucas Moura probably could end up playing that wing back position. Conte has actually been interviewed and discussed about this, is whether or not he will, go into like a defensive role, a bit like Moses. You have to bear with me.
You can go take care of that, man. There's no worries. Yeah, besides that, I mean, I think Perisic will obviously come into that team. He can play on the right or left, if truth be told, but I would assume it would be on the left, especially with the way that Conte will want to play. He'll want a natural left footer on that side, and then playing Lucas over here would be, it'd be interesting. I just don't see Lucas as a wing back, but he is. He could definitely play that. So can Sessegnon. Perisic would probably play on the left side, in your opinion, right? Because he can play right wing, but I think that just based off of what Conte likes, he'll want a natural left footer on the left wing, bro.
Oh no, definitely. Yeah, so I think that's going to be the most interesting situation with Tottenham next season, is going to be how they react to going forward with their kind of, when they come up against teams that are happy to kind of, play the anti-football to their anti-football, who are like happy to go, all right then, we'll keep the ball too, and you come and attack us because you need the points more than we do. Anyone who's in the bottom 10 teams will take a draw at Tottenham home and away every game of the season. Anyone who's in the bottom half of the table will take a 0-0 against Tottenham, and it'll be on Tottenham to come and attack and come and try and come up with a plan B in getting goals. And Sevilla is, one of those teams that will quite happily kind of hold the ball themselves and just, go on, that's fine. We'll play you at your own game.
Yeah, it does look like they played more of their first team in the second half as well. Just between Rakitic, Navas, Corona coming in. Who else did they have? I mean, Gomez, Papu Gomez, Lamela. I would assume he's one of their starters. Obviously, I don't watch a whole lot. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think Spurs is probably the one that have the most to lose out of this season because they're the ones who are being the most overhyped. If they don't make that top four, which I think they might. I mean, here's the problem: they should, but if they don't, there's no real reason why they haven't. I think they look probably. I mean, I didn't watch the game, but I think their midfield, Højbjerg and Basuma, that is a hard midfield to play against. That is a very frustrating midfield to play against. There's so much ball winning potential and physicality in that. That's going to be one of their back line and their midfield too, and then their strikers look good. It's really about just making sure that they get their wings set up in the right way, and I'm sure Conte will with Perisic coming in and whomever else. But they should have a good season. But they definitely have the most to lose going into this new season out of all 6 of these teams.
They've got the biggest challenges because of their style of football. Their style of football is not suitable for every team in the Premier League to go up against. And they come up, they're going to need to turn those draws into wins. They're going to have to find ways to win games against teams that are happy to allow Tottenham to have the ball. Tottenham are going to have to be happy to have the ball and kind of play a different style of football. When you're like a Liverpool or a City, you know what you're going to get. You know what kind of football you're going to get. Even United now, you know what you're going to get. They're going to play the same style of football over and over again. But with Tottenham, because they play a style of football which is counter-reactive, one that reacts to the opposition's attacking and tries to react to it, when they come up against your relegation fodder and when they come up against your bottom 8, your bottom 10 teams, they're going to have to win those matches. They're going to have to find ways to win those games and not allow draws like Brentford and Brighton last season to creep in, because they will kill them. That will kill their top 4 chances, because those teams will quite happily take a draw. Just as much as Tottenham will take a draw against Liverpool or take a draw against City, there's lots more teams that would happily take a draw against Tottenham by just playing them at their own game. So I think they're going to rely so heavily on Son, Kane and Richarlison to score goals. And if they're not in their purple patches and are not scoring goals, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot for Tottenham. So they're going to have to try and, there's a lot more expectation on Tottenham than there is, I think, for any other club. I think a lot of other fan bases are like, top 4, and they're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that might be a good place to leave it. Do you have any?
No, definitely. Yeah, brilliant. Well, obviously, thank you very much for everyone who's did you come across the video and come and watch. We'd love to hear your comments. Stick a like on the video if you've enjoyed what it was. Put a comment in. Subscribe if you can. We're on the road to 500, trying to get there, nearly halfway. So if you can help us get there, we'd really, really appreciate it. So we'll be back on Wednesday just with our transfer show, kind of bring you some of the updates of what's come on with the new transfers. There's already a few deals that look like they're going to be going through. Zinchenko's going from City to Arsenal. Good signings. We'll be discussing all of that. Hope you can join us then. But until then, we'll be Dan and Jesse at Talk Football. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Cheers, bye. See you now.